The New York Times opens this political week in America, the week of April 24th, with this headline: How Democrats Learn to Cast Aside Reservations and Embrace Biden 2024. It goes on. The president, who is expected to formally announce his re-election campaign this week, has won the full support of his party, despite questions about his age and middling approval ratings. I talk about this phenomenon often. I say that the East Coast, Washington, D.C. to New York, Acela corridor media is out of touch. What better example could I give than this headline from the New York Times, talking about the fact that President Biden has wrapped up fully the support of the Democratic Party. President Biden is looking at a party 70% of whom do not want to see him at 80 years old run for re-election. The overwhelming majority of Republicans, similarly, do not want to see Donald Trump run for re-election. This is the first foundational and most important aspect about what's coming up in 2024. The overwhelming majority of Americans do not want to see a rematch between Donald Trump, 78 years old, and Joe Biden, who will be 82 years old. They don't want it. Yet, they're going to get it. When the New York Times says he has the full support of his party, what they really mean is thus far, no credible Democrat has announced opposition. No younger Democrat has stepped forward and said, it's time to change the direction of the country. It's time to talk about better. It's time to talk about new. What they're talking about are the elected officials, the MAGA donors, and the institutional spine of the organization, the Democratic Party. That is who is on board, mostly by not opposing and mostly by not supporting someone new. It's no different on the Republican side. Republican voters, judging by the polls, do not want to see Donald Trump run again and be the nominee. Yet, it's almost certain that he will be. So the race starts out with an overwhelming majority of Americans getting something that they don't want. That alone signals something that's decaying and broken in our democracy and is a problem for democracy advocates. Because when we talk about democracy, what democracy is delivering to an overwhelming percentage of the American people is a choice they don't much care for. Yet, in 2024, we will have to be guided by the philosophy of the Rolling Stones. You can't always get what you want, but sometimes you get what you need. And the choice between President Biden and the extremist faction led by Donald Trump is as clear a choice as there ever will be. This isn't an election about policy or issues. It's an election about American liberty. It's an election about whether the idea of the country will continue forward. Donald Trump is a lawless man. He's a dishonest man. He's a constitutional vandal. And so what the election is about at the end, at its core, is not President Biden's age. It's not about the frustration of people like myself who badly, badly, badly want to see generational change and wish there was a primary contest. The election is about, once again, the singular issue of our time: the confrontation between American liberty and American democracy and American extremism. Many, many Americans are exhausted already by the prospect of this rematch, yet the rematch is the only way through which liberty can be defended through the reelection of President Biden. Should Donald Trump take office, the extremist agenda will advance. He will make more Supreme Court appointments, and a generation of Americans will witness the quick, fast, and unstoppable collapse of freedom in this country as power and privilege and authority smother the rule of law to death. That's what the 2024 election is about. We are at a dangerous moment that has not grown less so over the years of the Biden presidency. It has grown more so. Whatever accomplishments one would lay at the feet of President Biden, and there are many, one of them is not this. He did not smother and stop the growth of the extremist movement in the United States. It reformed over the course of his presidency. And now it's back. And anybody who tells you that Donald Trump can't win, that the extremists cannot prevail, does not have a handle on what's happening in this country. What's happening in this country is an unsteady economy for working people, a doubling of interest rates, which is a massive tax increase on any young family looking to buy a house, and the reality that 40% of Americans have $400 cash available and 70% are living paycheck to paycheck. When the American people vote, it won't be a choice between Donald Trump and Joe Biden through the context of who do I like more. The choice will be made through the prism of what side will hurt me the most, and they'll vote against that side, not necessarily for the other. In 2020, President Biden won. He won by a few thousand votes across 3 states. Nobody should have a lack of imagination about the circumstances coming together that bring the extremist faction back to power in America. If it happens, it will be one of the most tragic moments in the history of this country, and it may be the one we're unable to recover from.